Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you join us today on the first Marketers IV webinar series. My name is Lori Jones. I'm President and CEO of Avocet Communications. Avocet is a strategic and integrated communications firm. I'm very, very excited to have with me today Dave Smith, who is our Director of Client Relations, along with Susan Beyer, who is our research enthusiast who brings all things to life when it comes to segmentation. And that's what we're going to share with you today.
So what is Marketer's IV? Well, it is a shot in the arm for any marketer who has challenges, goals, or need for inspirational vision within their organization. It's an opportunity for you to hear how individuals like you, your colleagues and constituents, are working with organizations like ours and finding inspiration, direction, and best practices that help get you ahead with timely, informative information that is appropriate for your industry and your specialty. So why is Avocet doing this? Well, we are about 400 plus episodes into our Integrate and Ignite podcast. If you haven't tapped into that, we highly recommend that you do, because it's a great opportunity to have weekly insights into what's happening in the world of marketing and advertising. And we felt that through these podcast series, the abundance of information that we are gathering across industries, across titles, across specialties, help us assess opportunities to provide impact to marketers like you, in industry like yours, that have modern day, timely, applicable insights, especially during these periods of global crisis and ongoing economic challenges through supply chain and human resources, as well as financial implications. So we're excited to take those insights and those tidbits of research that we've gathered across the board and share them with you, and hope that each day, with each one of these series that unfold, it helps you become the marketing genius that you are. So what to expect? We're going to go over a subset of results and data that we've gleaned from this research that Susan will share with you. And there's a host of insights and topics to address, but today we've selected a few that Susan is going to talk about next.
Thank you, Dave. Lori, so nice to be with you today. Hi, everyone. So we did an online survey of a significant number of folks working in businesses about sort of how their marketing is going, how their business is positioned, and really how they're feeling about things. And that's the focus of this research, is understanding the attitudes that these groups of people have. Organically, as a result of the responses that they gave us, we developed these segments. So these were not predetermined, but what we found is very distinct groups out there among these folks. You can see them here. We're going to talk about them more today. And of course, as Lori will share with you later, there's lots more data to come and ways for you to access it on your own. But we have three groups. The first is accomplished marketers at 28% of our study, anxious strugglers at 40%, and strategy believers at 31%. So I'm going to take you through sort of what defines these groups and how you can think about them, and maybe reflect on sort of where your organization is in this landscape. So the accomplished marketers are 28% of our respondent group, and they are defined by a feeling that their organization is doing very well with respect to marketing and frankly in general. So this is the set of attitudes that these folks hold in common. They connect these together, whether they realize them or not, in terms of to the extent to which they agree with them. So they say their organization has a good understanding of its competitors. They're well positioned to achieve their goals this year. They say they're good at differentiating from their competitors. They understand marketing well and say it's a top priority for their organization. They do a good job of ensuring that everything they're doing from a marketing standpoint is aligned with their main goals. They have very clear marketing objectives. They say they're good at thinking outside the box when it comes to marketing and are considering activities that they haven't done before this year. They also say they have the in-house expertise that they need to do what they want to do from a marketing standpoint, and that they're good at tracking the impact of their marketing activities. So of our entire respondent group, 28%, which I should point out is a minority, actually feels like they're doing really well with their marketing in terms of how they're handling it, how they're measuring it, how they're strategizing it, and how it's connecting to the goals that they are trying to reach as an organization. Here's the biggest group in the study. We call them anxious strugglers. These folks are not feeling accomplished like the accomplished marketers are. They say their organization needs to build more effective marketing. They're very concerned that the economic conditions that we're facing are going to create significant challenges for their organization in this year. They think their organization needs more visionary thinking. They say it's harder to find customers than it was before 2020. They are particularly interested in having an outside perspective. Again, that's connected with their need for more visionary thinking. They're worried that shifts in buyer behavior are going to cause problems for them. They want a better marketing strategy. They're also having trouble with staffing. Marketing expertise maintenance inside the house is a significant concern, and finding quality marketing employees is harder than ever. They need expert help more than ever. They say their organization's largely doing the same kind of marketing it's always done. Sales and marketing are often viewed as the same thing in their organization, which is interesting. And these respondents say that their organization is reluctant to pursue the kinds of marketing activities that this respondent thinks that they should be doing. So that's 40%. That's the largest group in our study. Strategy believers aren't necessarily there yet with respect to being accomplished marketers, but they have a very firm vision. They know exactly where they're going, and they're working very hard to get there. So they believe that developing a strong marketing strategy is absolutely worth the effort, and that research should be a critical step before developing those strategies. Yay, I like this group. A strong marketing strategy is important to differentiate from the competition, and I'm sure Lori and Dave, you would agree with that. Marketing with multiple types of content is more effective than just sort of staying in a single lane. Using multiple platforms for content is important. And having that strategy is a critical step before you develop anything from a content or creative standpoint. They also say that carefully managing their organization's brand identity is important in differentiating us from the competition. So they're linking not only differentiation and strategy, but they're linking it to their brand identity. And this is 31% of our respondents.
So we think very, very interesting data here. And one of the most compelling components of this is if you are reflecting on this information as Susan is sharing it with you, we've all been in one of those segments at one point in time. And it does not matter if we're starting out our career and we've got a great strategic CMO that's helping guide us along the way. We might be a strategy believer out of the chute. Or if we are a small to medium-sized businesses and we just don't have the infrastructure or the experience yet, we could be that anxious struggler. No matter what the segment, we've all been there at one point in time. And we ask through the remaining presentation today that you really try to hone in on what area that might be that you feel you most want to be able to tackle through the rest of this research. Again, we've all been there, and there's no one believer mindset, if you will, that is better than the next. It just happens to be the infrastructure that you may or may not have in place and the experience that is along with that. Case in point, we work with several clients in the tech arena. And one of our clients right now is very, very much a strategy believer. They have a great infrastructure. It happens to be a SaaS client. They've got a very, very large team internally, but they still see the need for external sources to help augment what they need to be able to get done day in and day out. So what we would urge you to do is roll up your sleeves at this point in time and really think through, okay, this is me, and what am I going to do to help a firm where I can best impact the bottom line for my company?
And we saw these, Lori, across all organization sizes. We saw them across all marketing budgets. So this isn't really the accomplished marketers or the big guys with a bunch of money and everybody else is sort of trailing behind them. We saw very small organizations in that group and very large ones in the group of strugglers.
That's such a good point, Susan. It does not matter at all. It's ultimately what is that resource internally that you do or don't have, and how can you best augment it to make sure that you're achieving that vision that's so important, the ROI, the KPIs, OKRs, all of those.
Yeah, and a function of priority too, Dave. One of the attitudes that we saw in that struggler group is that their organization tends to think as marketing and sales as sort of the same thing. And I'm sure that creates challenges for folks who are trying to do either of those things when they have to sort of try to do both of them. What do you think about that from a struggler perspective?
Well, it's probably more pervasive in every organization, regardless if they have a dedicated marketing department and sales department. Ultimately, they're both competing for the same goal, which is to sell more things for more money more often. A marketer's job is to make the sales team's job easier. Sometimes the sales team's job is to, or more often than not, the sales team's main responsibility is to add that top line revenue. And in the course of the speed to market and executing what is perceived to be the best course of action, they sometimes, avoid the opportunity to engage with the right strategy, which is a marketer's job. Discussing the why, what we do, and how we do it, really important.
So that's just a reality for a lot of folks who may be listening, that like it or not, their organization is sort of blending these roles together, which can probably create some of the challenges that they're having in terms of getting strategy done from a marketing standpoint and continuing to act on that and do analytics and stuff. And that's a challenge. That's 40% of our group right there.
And sometimes that individual is one and the same, which makes it even more difficult to determine what side of their role and responsibility that they best serve first. And of course, as you'll hear, we're big proponents of leading with strategy.
And just a follow-on note to that, so much of great marketing right now, especially with some of the B2B channels, of course, for our consumer clients and some retail, it's a little different. But if you take a look at account-based marketing, those ABM strategies, the alignment that's truly needed between sales and marketing, I mean, if the alignment's not there, the program is just not going to work. So I echo everything that you've said and add that little tidbit into it because it becomes vitally important.
Interesting. So for all of the differences in their attitudes, there is one point on which they all agree, which is that our prospects are making purchase decisions differently than they did before 2020. You could see on the ratings here with the 6 agree completely. We have pretty strong agreement with that across all of the segments, that things have really changed from the standpoint of buyer priorities.
Bottom line here is strategy is so incredibly important. And I think most people think, okay, I've got to get A, B, C, and D done, and here are the tactics that are going to help me get there. And they don't back in the strategy to begin with. And we've got, several different levers that we pull on here at Avocet before any type of tactic is discussed. And we're really taking a look and honing in on, what is it that our client is facing day in and day out? What are the challenges? What is the industry landscape? Where are their customers buying and not buying? Where do they fit in from a positioning standpoint? Are we going to challenge someone or something from a competitive standpoint? So many different strategic levers to really be thinking through. And that's just a small amount that should be considered. So if you think about that and then think about tactic first, you're just not going to go to market with the right insight and really the right positioning that's needed to succeed. We have worked with so many brands in our 42-year history, and many of them have come to us with the, what we thought the product would sell itself. We didn't feel that marketing was going to really help us get there. And they learned the hard way on the importance of that. And we have taken several brands, whether they be 2 years into their product roadmap or 15 years, and heard the same thing. So I would urge everyone to really think through, what is the strategy? Do we have it down? Is it winnable? Which is a great, great question to be asking yourselves. Can we win with this? Or can the competition just nip at our heels all too quickly, or embarrass us with something that we might want to own? So there's so many different considerations here to take a look at.
Interesting. And in case all of you viewers didn't believe me when I said earlier that this isn't about the big guys versus the little guys, as you can see here, we see all of these segments present, whether it's a revenue question, a budget question, even I thought this was so interesting, you guys, the level in the organization. You know, you might think that the senior leadership thinks we're doing great and it's the folks in the trenches who are struggling. That's not the case. Regardless of who our respondent was, we saw them reflect on their organizations across this spectrum. None of these differences are statistically reliable. So hopefully that's, I don't know, reassuring maybe, Lori, that even if you're big and you're struggling, you're not alone. And even if you're small, you can accomplish really great things to get you to the point where you do feel that your organization is doing a great job with its marketing and strategy and differentiation.
Absolutely. I mean, I think some of the best campaigns out there are driven by a very, very tight budget and not as much wiggle room. And the strategy that's needed to be successful in that situation is vitally important. Bottom line is, size does not matter. We have seen so many brands, and even if they've got a small startup budget or a very large enterprise budget, the smarts that it takes to ultimately be on strategy out of the chute is what we need to be most concerned about here. And if you've got a very, very small time period with a very tight budget, let's say you're launching at a trade show, that's a great, great way for many small brands with small budgets to launch, because your audience is in one room at one time, and you can be so concentrated on the approach there. We've done that many, many times. And, you know, and making yourself appear larger than you are is another example here. We've got a client, we launched a product at a international trade show, and we had a press conference. They were very small compared to the big players, but nonetheless, it was what they needed to really, you know, kind of shoot out of the weight class that they were in. And of course, those enterprise clients who have the larger budget, they've got to be so specific and direct with their approach. Because they can pull more of the owned, earned, shared, and paid approach with the different levers, but they still need the KPIs and the OKRs and the strategic relevance to make sure that they're spending dollars correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So this is just a little bit of the research that we've actually got, as you guys know. Talk a little bit about sort of what's coming. This is the first in a series. So let's hear what's coming up.
So we've got, we've got weeks and weeks and even months of opportunities to come back and talk about some of these good findings that we've had. Of course, we're going to keep it relevant and timely. I think in the next 3 weeks or so, we're going to be talking about 2023 trends and planning. Great opportunity for those leadership teams within your organizations to take a really strong look at what your fiscal targets are, marrying those up with strategic goals, and then all of the opportunities to find the right tactics and the right engagement strategies that really bring those to life and help hit those goals and those OKRs. Efforts in differentiating both your deliverables and your niche in the market are something that's near and dear to our hearts. Obviously, working with a lot of early stage brand as well as very mature brands who are retooling their positioning in the market helps us to come to the table with some best practices and things that we've found are working really well in different verticals. And then lastly today, I think just a little teaser on integrating your marketing mix. It seems like it's so blasé to talk about integrated marketing when really we should be talking about strategic marketing, and having the ability to take that big picture, that inspirational vision that you have for your industry, and bringing that to life with all of those levers that Lori talked about. Something that we're really excited to come back and share with you all.
It's going to be so fun to go through all of that data with this lens of the segments, because as you know, we often see them experiencing different things, doing different things, making different decisions with their marketing. So it's going to be fun to take what we talked about today and really look at all of this other data sort of through that perspective. I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
And I think what is really interesting and exciting is that this agency, with 4+ decades of experience across thousands of clients and hundreds of different vertical opportunities, just bring a wealth of, we've been there and seen a lot of that. We've suffered a lot of it ourselves as a very entrepreneurial business. So being able to encapsulate both lessons learned as well as a great opportunity to have sat on the sidelines as well as got in the game with a lot of these brands is very exciting.
For sure.
So-
So we've got other resources, Lori, that people can actually sort of look at this data themselves and start
Right.
to explore it and learn a little more, and maybe distribute some of this learning throughout their organizations. You want to talk about that a little bit?
I sure do. I mean, this data that we pulled is just so inspirational, and there's so many insights that you can ultimately gain through it. So we're going to provide it to you. You can go ahead and visit avasecommunications.com IV to download the full study and the executive summary here. And you'll have the full research visualization that you'll be able to walk through as well, and really dive into asking yourself, how do I fit into this? And what can I learn to better run a great marketing, not only team and outside partners, but run an incredible campaign or a program that really can create that ROI that the C-suite is looking for these days. And we must deliver as a marketing community.
Super fun. So if you're a data person, there's lots of stuff for you to root around in there. And the executive summary is just a nice encapsulation, I guess, that you could share with other people in your organization and maybe get them sort of thinking about some of these topics as well.
That's sure true. And we would love to hear from you. Dave and I are always an email away. We are two of those individuals and leaders that are all about just being available to answer questions and provide us feedback. What would you like to learn in one of the next sessions? I mean, the data is the data, but we can address so much when it comes to sharing this information with you. And we're all ears, that is for sure. So we look forward to seeing you next time, and we can't wait to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us today on our first Marketers IV.